Okay, once again, a good evening. This is Programmers Live, directly from where we ended in the previous episode when we looked at a beautiful example about how to implement a constant. Then I left with an assignment of a program. We did the one on line 60, and then it was a very nice thing for guys to have done one on line 63. Now I want us to look at something so more important, still added onto what we need to know in the language. And today we talk about what we call statements. Now listen very well. I'm going to have a little chat and we shall see what happens next. Now, statements represent the lowest level building blocks of a program. Okay, building blocks of a program representation. Okay, all along I've been talking about statements when I was explaining about how a C++ program looks like. I told you, or we talked about statements. So here we are saying that statements represent the lowest level building blocks of a program. Okay, and each statement represents a computational step which has a certain side effect. Remember, we said side effects are permanent changes to the program state. So each statement is a computational step, and it can have a side effect. Okay, now if you try to notice in the few programs that we've written earlier, a running program spends all its time executing statements. Write this here. A running program spends all its time executing statements. Have you thought about that? Definitely yes, because if you try to look at a program like the one that we had the previous time, it's full of statements. So if you set it to run, the task of the compiler is to realize that each statement that is really necessary to the program, that it means excluding the comments, is under execution. Okay, now the order in which statements are executed is known as flow control. The order in which those statements are executed, like this is the first one, this is the second one, then go back to the previous one, that is called flow control or control flow. Okay, now this is done by the CPU. So the CPU will know which statement goes after the next. Now, but generally the flow control in a program is basically or typically sequential. So we shall say the flow control of a program is specifically sequential. Sequential means one after another in a certain order. Altogether, that means from one statement to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. Altogether. So one thing that you need to know is flow control is an important consideration because it determines what is executed during a run and what is not. Altogether. So the effect is the overall outcome of the program. I said listen, the effect is effect is the overall outcome of the program. Guys, I'm hoping I'm really making quite a lot of sense. So after all that flow control, after all that sequential execution, after all that guided execution, so the overall effect is the outcome for the program. Okay, now a language like C++, okay, which is procedural, it provides different forms of statements. I'm saying a language like C++, which has a procedural form in its mode of programming, it provides quite a number of statements, okay, types of statements in C++, in the concept of being procedural. One of them will have what we call declaration statements. Okay, like for example, in the previous program we had line 8 that is called a declaration statement. That is why, if you recall, I put a comment which was saying declarations needed. So we have what we call declaration statements, which are used for defining variables, because you remember among the rules of variable naming we said never use a variable that is not defined. Okay, so among the types of statements that we can have in C++, we have what we call declaration statements. What do? They help you to define variables. Okay, now we also have what we call branching statements. We also have what we call branching statements. Now these ones are to identify alternative paths, okay, of execution. These are to identify alternative paths of execution. Giving an example, you're logging into Facebook. Okay, for those guys who have a Facebook account, you realize that if you log in the first time and it's the wrong user ID or password, then the second time, then the third time, you're locked out of your account. It means a decision has been made, a branch has been implemented. It means an alternative path of locking you out of the account has been made. So in such scenarios, it means they use what we call branching statements. All in all, they are doing what we call flow control. The question is, who does the flow control? It is the programmer. Okay, as the program is making executions, you, in your mind as the programmer, you anticipate that there is going to be a scenario A, a scenario B, and what should the program do? For example, I've given you, assume you're the developer of Facebook. Of course, you anticipate ahead of time that a user might log in more than once or more than 3 times with the wrong user ID or password. Then what should I do? I lock you out until when you verify that it is your account. So that is what we call branching. Then we have what we call looping statements. We have what we call looping statements, or we call them iterative statements. Now before that, branching statements are also known as logical, or like I said earlier, decision making. It has to decide, I've found this, then what should I do? You're into an ATM machine, okay, you enter your PIN number wrongly quite a few times. What happens to your card? The machine swallows the card. So those are what we call branching statements. Okay, the ATM system, banking system, will identify an alternative path to take. So for this time around, what is going to happen? Logically, it will assume that maybe you're not the owner of the card, that maybe you're trying to do something that is not legit. Okay, so I'll swallow your card as the machine. So that happens. So we said other type of statements, we have what we call looping statements or iterative statements. Now this one is also logical in a way that this is also logical. Logical means in operation. Okay, there is a need to think. There is a need to think, then act, think and take a decision. So looping means that something has to be done a repeated number of times. So execution for a repeated number of times until a certain outcome is given. That is what we call iteration. Okay, so in conclusion, flow control statements are used to divert the execution path to another path of the program. I will say it again. Flow control statements are used to divert the execution path of a program to another path or part of the program altogether. Now, still under statements, there are some statements which are known to be simple statements, and there are some statements which are known to be compound statements. Guys, I'm teaching you programming, but without forgetting, whatever I'm talking right now has to be in your head. The same way I'm interacting with you with the head. Okay, so that you get to know that in life you don't be like a lawyer. In the life of programming, you don't need to be like a lawyer that you need to move with 1,000 books for reference. What we do in programming, I'll sing it again, you equip your head. So your head becomes your first alternative. Okay, so it means you put in all that you want with an anticipation that soon or later you're going to be required to be knowing that particular part of the language. So I'm saying, among these statements, we have what we call those simple statements, then we have what we call those compound statements. Now, a simple statement is a computation terminated by a semicolon. So, for example, all these ones here are simple statements. Okay, just a few lines of code, then you terminate. So those are what we call simple statements. Okay, so for example, if I come and say a pre-increment y terminate, that is a simple statement. Hope you understand. So in programming, those are known as simple statements. Now we have what we call compound statements. Now when it comes to compound statements, there are multiple statements combined into what we call a compound statement. So these are enclosed in what we call curly braces. So they happen here, what we call a compound or multiple statements. Okay, something like that is what I mean. We'll have an example. So in this example, I'm saying int I'm opening and I'm closing. I don't need a main. I just want to show you how a combination of multiple statements can be combined into what we call compound statements. So I have int mean. I've used this earlier before. Then I have I, maybe I is assigned 20. Then j maybe is assigned 10. Okay, assume, but remember we are still under the same opening and closing brace. So I'm checking my L value. I'm checking if I is less than j, so I use conditional operator. So definitely I'll print I if it is true, or I'll print j if it is false. I've done this already. So see out, I'll definitely print mean because it's the one that is containing the result. So if you try to realize that I've combined a number of statements into one, so it's a block of code. Okay, so compound statements mean block of code. Okay, so a block of code that is from one curly brace opening to another opening. Now back again here, we talked about declaration statements, branching statements, and looping statements. Now those are like sorry about this, correct it as early as possible. These are about categories. Okay, these are about categories. So actually let me make it even more clear. This was declaration, this was declaration. That is the problem of getting things from the head, but don't worry, we're still on track. Declaration statements, we have those that are called simple and those that are called compound. I think I've made it quite clear. Now about branching and looping statements, these two here, about branching and looping statements, those two, they have types of control statements. The other ones were categories, so we have types of control statements. One, it's called the if statement. One is called the if statement. What we shall do is to give a syntax. So the syntax will not come out well unless if we choose a language. So I'll say what we can do maybe what should I do? Okay, let me just do like this. New views syntax C++. I just want to simplify my life. So one is if statement, syntax is if, and that is the syntax. Someone's going to say, hey, what the hell are you writing? Ladies and gentlemen, each time we meet in an episode, more is being added to our knowledge of the language. So once again, I've said under branching and iterative statements, we have what we call types of control statements. So among the types of control statements, we have what we call an if statement. And the easiest way to understand the if is when we have the syntax, and that is how it is written. Altogether, we have the syntax. Sometimes syntax 2, I'll call this syntax 2. I'll say if, then I'll say statement. Okay, that can also definitely work. So all in all, we always say if, then we open brackets and we put in the condition, then we open these braces and we put in some code inside. Okay, now why do we talk about the if? The if is desirable whereby we need to execute something in the program basing on a certain condition. I'm saying it again. A statement like if is desirable for scenarios or for cases whereby you do something because of a certain condition, or you don't do something because of a certain condition. So the idea will be how it works, and it is simple. Only allows execution when the condition is true. Okay, only allows execution when the condition is true. Take a scenario. I'll say if, okay, user name and password are correct. Username and password are correct. Then login. Guys, I'm giving it to you in a layman so that you understand, okay, before we implement it in the programming world. But of course the scenario is a programming scenario. So if the condition is username and password are correct, so what is going to happen? Definitely it will allow you to log in. Now someone is going to say, what if the condition is false? Then don't log in. Simple and precise. Simple and precise. Okay. For example, a program that accepts the age of a user, then how can we have a better example? A program that accepts the age of a user, then rewards a ticket if it's 18 and above. So we are giving a user a ticket to whichever, either a play or a movie or whatever, but on condition that the user is 18 and above. So what is going to happen? I'll come back to my previous section here. What am I doing this? I'm doing this because I don't want to waste a lot of time. So I'll say int age, and age is initialized to 0. So here I'll say enter age to get ticket. So enter age to get ticket. So enter age to get ticket. So it means here I'll be capturing age. Then around here, let's check the age given before awarding. I'm commenting so that you understand. Before awarding ticket. So our if statement comes in. I'll say if what? If age, then our operator greater or equal to 18. Guys, I think this is far clear. Only allows execution when the condition is true. Only allows execution when the condition is true. So so here we shall say awarded ticket. Wow, awarded ticket. So you see how operators come in. I was promising you in the previous episodes when we are talking about operators that they are going to come to play. So here we are, we received the age, but we need to check the age. So our question was, sorry, here we needed to change ticket awarding program, the basing on age. Okay, so enter age to get ticket. So we check here if age is equal or greater than because the question was saying accepts age of a user, rewards ticket if it's 18 and above. So it means if you're 18, ticket. If you're above 18, ticket. That is why here we are saying greater or equal to. So let's check if we are going to be given a ticket basing on age. So once again we shall run. So we are going to enter age. My age is 34, assume. So ticket awarded, you see that that was above 18. So I'm 18, awarded ticket. We run once again. I wanna be below 18. I'm 12. Nothing happens. So the program was not given an alternative because we are using an if statement. So it only and only allows execution when the given condition is true. So where the condition was false, you realize that the program never gave us anything. Reason being, we didn't opt for that. So that is how an if statement briefly works. Okay, back again. So that was the if statement one. So we have another one. Which is a sister or a brother, whatever the case may be. It is called the if else statement. As usual, we have the syntax. So syntax is gonna be if condition. So code when true, like what we had earlier. Then we have else. Okay, let me push it down. Let me leave it here. Any way you wanna put it. So this one is code when false. Okay, definitely. How does it work? If the condition is true, code in the if body, let's say if body code, when true, this one is called else body code when false. Okay, so coming back to modify our program, here we can opt and we say else cout no ticket. Okay, so we are catering for a scenario where someone is below the required age. Okay, where someone is below the required age. So we are going to update the one that we have in the compiler, and we shall run again. So we shall say it's 12. Okay, so it says no ticket, reason being we gave an alternative. So the else is for the alternative for cases whereby the if results into a false. So for cases where I was giving a scenario of Facebook or Gmail, whatever the case may be, so here if it was a password test, definitely you enter. So here you log in, or you will be locked out of the system that is within the else. Okay, then another thing that I want you to note, another thing that I want you to note, now in the previous example, I'll put it back to normal. In the previous example, basing on the syntax that we had, where was it? Basing on the syntax that we had around where did we? Okay, we are here. Based on this syntax that we had syntax 1 and syntax 2. Now syntax 1 was having the curly braces and syntax 2 was not having. Now when do we opt for curly braces and when can we exclude them? Now for cases whereby you have a single statement in the if statement, then you can do away with the curly braces. Guys, is that clear? If I only have a single statement in an if body or else body, whatever the case may be, I can do away with the curly braces. But the moment you enter into having more than one statement in the body, then you're going to need curly braces. So this one is also very perfect and fine. So actually what I can do, I can copy this once again and take it back to my compiler. Okay, I can take it back to my compiler. So realize I have one statement and I have excluded the curly braces. So we want to confirm if it really works as expected. So I'm gonna say 56. So definitely it says awarded ticket. Okay, so that is really perfect. So guys, we are yet talking about the if statement. So the if statement has what we call the if and the if else. So allow me sign out until the next session. Don't forget to subscribe on my YouTube channel, Programmers Life. For any question, +256 751 824973, that is WhatsApp, or programmerslife@gmail.com.